So there's no shortage of stories that make Wells Fargo look bad, but this story in particular really amplifies my disdain for Wells Fargo because of the fact that they did something wrongful, okay? They wrongfully accused a man of not paying his property taxes, went after him, and the court case was so stressful that his family alleges that he died as a result of it. So Wells Fargo wrongfully went after a man named Larry DeLassis, and they said that he failed to pay his property taxes for 2 years in a row. So they went after him for $13,361.90. Now, this man had paid his property taxes. In fact, he had overpaid his property taxes by 6 months. So he didn't really understand what was going on, but Wells Fargo made a mistake and they were supposed to go after his neighbor, but because of a typo, they went after him. So they said, well, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to pay your property taxes for you. That way, you know, you don't have to go underwater or anything like that. You can continue to stay in your house, but then you have to pay us that money back. And he's like, wait, but I paid my property taxes. They didn't care. And at first, they didn't do an investigation to see if there was a typo. They went after him and they doubled his mortgage. Now keep in mind that this is an older guy, you know, he's retired, he was living on about $1,600 a month, and they doubled his mortgage to about $2,500 a month. So he couldn't pay his mortgage. And the crazy thing is, before they foreclosed on him, they discovered that they actually made a mistake, that there was a typo, they had the wrong parcel number. And even though that happened, they decided to foreclose on him anyway.
Well, I think the worst thing about this to me is that when the mistake, this all started in 2009 when the Wells Fargo said that, you know, you haven't been paying. And the discovery of the mistake was found in 2010. So we're talking, this is, you know, 3 years ago that we found out about this. The man finally got his administrative hearing, finally was able to maybe get Wells Fargo to talk with him, and he died in December of 2012 at that hearing. His neighbors, that's of course where they say that his medical condition, he had a rare blood clot disorder that, you know, made him very sick at times and also could cloud his thinking at times. And they said that the stress of that was finally what killed him in the middle of his administrative hearing.
Yeah, in the middle of the hearing. It's crazy. Now, as I mentioned, Wells Fargo did discover that they made a mistake before they foreclosed on his home. In fact, Robert Bailey, who is the lawyer for Wells Fargo, said the following, quote, Wells Fargo paid the amount it determined was owed to the county assessor, approximately $10,500. This was a mistake. The $10,500 was the tax amount owed on a neighboring property, not the plaintiff's. Bailey added, in September 2010, Wells Fargo acknowledged its error in paying the taxes on plaintiff's neighbor's property and corrected it. By then, however, DeLassis was so far behind on his mortgage payments, wrongfully doubled by Wells Fargo, that the bank refused to let him resume his $1,237.69 installments. Trujillo said. He faced a sizable reinstatement cost, which is often the past due amount plus fees. Now, at first, they didn't even let him know what the reinstatement cost was. And then he finally figured it out.
Oh yeah, they told him, and they gave him 24 hours to pay. And what was the amount?
$337,250.40.
24 hours to pay.
That's the cost of a home. Like, yeah. You have to pay the cost of a home in cash.
Now, one of the other things that they mentioned in this particular report was that both his lawyer and he were unaware that the Consumer Products, now I'm going to mess up the name on it, the Consumer Financial Products, somebody help me out with it, CPFA, is that they didn't know that it was available to them to help them through this process.
Right.
You know, and of course we know that the banks paid a lot of money to try to stop it in its tracks, to try to prevent it from starting altogether. And here we are again as to the reason why we so desperately need the CPFA.
Yeah, it's incredible that they made the mistake and it didn't matter in the end.
No.
They didn't, from as far as I know, they didn't face any consequences for what they've done.
Of course not. They have never faced any consequences,
never.
The banks, for any of this.
They foreclosed on a retired guy who, you know, has a severe disability because of his blood clot issue. And all he wanted to do was live in that condo. He had, you know, neighbors and friends that said that he was just this great guy with a great sense of humor, and he was a law-abiding citizen. He played by the rules. He did everything he needed to do to live an honest life. And then in comes this bank. They make a mistake. They destroy everything, and they don't have to pay any consequences for it. Now, LA Weekly reached out to Wells Fargo to get a statement from them, and the statement is incredible in how cruel it is, okay? This is what they said. Given that there was no testimony or evidence to be presented at the hearing, there was no reason for Mr. DeLassis to attend, and it is truly unfortunate that he was brought there. So you're going to blame the victim for showing up to that hearing?
Well, of course. What would Wells Fargo do otherwise? They would have to admit that they did something wrong, you know, that they not only did they make a mistake, but they also, you know, hounded this guy practically to his death in that respect as well. It's that predatory lending that we have been so very good at here in America, that we've made it possible for banks to come after innocent people and destroy their lives.
It's really a sad story.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And, you know, this is just one of many. You know, people that were foreclosed on, people who paid their mortgages, but they still got foreclosed.
And still no banks, no bank employee, no bank officer, no bank executive has gone to jail. And there have not really been any significant changes in our laws in Congress, except for the Bureau that's supposed to protect consumers, which they've already tried to gut and will continue to try to gut and probably defund forever.